Welcome again to GWE Podcast. We're so happy that we get the opportunity to share with you and to come into your house each month and share the thoughts that we have come up with or that you have told us you want us to talk about. So today we're going to be talking about domestic violence. It's not a happy topic, but nonetheless we want to make everyone aware of what domestic violence is and hear what the ladies have to say on how we can handle that as women. And I want to make it clear that there are some men who suffer domestic violence also. So we're not going to forget about that. The majority gender of domestic violence are women, and so we want to be careful to address that. So I use the United Nations definition, and domestic violence is also called domestic abuse or intimate partner violence. And it's defined as a pattern of behavior in any relationship that is used to gain or maintain power and control over an intimate partner. Abuse can be physical, sexual, emotional, economic, or psychological actions of threat or threats of actions that influence another person. This includes any behavior that frightens, intimidates, terrorizes, manipulates, hurts, humiliates, blame, injure, or wound someone. And it can happen to any race, people of any race, any age, any sexual orientation, religion, or gender. So on that note, ladies, one of the things we know is that domestic violence can happen in married life or people living together or dating, and it affects people of all socioeconomic backgrounds and education levels. Anyone can be a victim of domestic violence, regardless of their faith, their class, their gender, their race, their age. So what do you all have to say about domestic violence?
It's funny that you mentioned that it can happen to men, because a lot of times when we hear domestic violence, we always think it's a lady. But I've read many articles where men found themselves in those type of situations, and people don't believe that it's happening.
Yes.
So what is the solution for that? I mean, if a man call in on a hotline to report that he's being physically abused or verbally abused, and no one believes him, how does he overcome that?
Well, I think it applies to women as well.
Right.
It applies to anyone who is experiencing domestic violence. There is a stigma associated with it. There is will they believe me? There is the manipulation by the partner that is abusing, so that it discredits what the victim, if we use that term, which I don't like that term. I just don't have a better one to use, is going through. And it's a matter of, what are the support structures that they can build? And a lot of times that's part of it, is that their support structures get torn down over time, little by little, through alienation, right? A lot of times domestic violence abusers start to alienate those people that could help you. So it's such a complex, situation. And I personally know a man who did go through domestic violence.
I have two male friends who used to get beat up by their wives.
Yes, and he used to get beat up by his wife, berated by his wife, and she's someone who no one would suspect. And he did everything in his power. He was trying to keep his family together. He was trying to do everything he could, and it's unfortunate that happened, and I will tell you, mentally it takes a toll on men as well. And he alienated himself because through that stigma, he didn't want to have his friends learn that was happening. And so I think it's, whether you're man or woman, there's so many things that happen that you get in that situation and you stop and think, like, how did I even get here? Right.
And the sad thing about it, like, if you're a woman, and women actually physically beat up their men, and you beat up a man is basically allowing you to do it, because if the man knows that if he fights back and he hits you, he's going straight to jail, just like that. No questions asked. They don't even want to know what happened, and they're not going to believe that your wife was beating on you and you fought back.
That's true. What do you think, Angie?
I have a few circumstances to be aware of people in my circle who have been affected by this. And it seems to me, I'm speaking cautiously because I certainly don't find myself to be an expert and I don't have this experience, but it seems to me that there's always a mental game involved. It's never just about the physical piece of it.
Yes.
And that perhaps the how did I get here is over time, we had some kind of narcissistic person in the relationship who powered up, and when maybe the verbal diminishing wasn't enough anymore, when perhaps it was challenged verbally, then the physical, there's this powering and posturing. And so I'm wondering, where did the lack of confidence begin? Probably not in that relationship, because there was an open door to an awareness on the offender's part that there was a weakness or a lack of stability or confidence. Where did that start? And so that's been my reflection in my own relationships, is what did you as an individual bring into that wasn't enough for you to stand on? Because there's a game there. And I don't think it's conscious. I don't think the offender oftentimes wants to offend. I don't think they want to contribute in these ways, but they act out. So what did they bring in that was unresolved in their past? And then you have a perhaps more compassionate person who takes it. It's like we all bring in our own journeys and pathways, things that were unhealed from something else, and now we explode on each other or we crumble under another. I know that's a bit of a ramble, but I just wonder what happened before this moment, and what does it really have to do with, and how do we help people get the support and the assistance they need? Because that's not the conversation to have. Like, well, what happened to you before? That's not. Right. But that's where my brain goes. Like, how do we intercept this at the beginning and build up confident men and women with certainty that they are valuable, so that at the slightest hint that something is off, it's corrected before it's.
Well, I think it's, in talking to friends that have gone this, or I have a friend whose young adult daughter has gone through this or in her early marriage, there were red flags.
Yeah.
And it was the overlooking those, whether it was the initial verbal abuse or something, it was overlooking that because, well, I'm trying to stay in my marriage and make it work. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to do anything I can to do that. And sometimes it's overlooking those red flags, or it's, well, let me not do something to trigger. So there's
and you know what I heard?
things.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but also I chose this. Mm-hmm. It's my fault. I chose this person. I've heard that. Like, I know I did this to myself because I chose this. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. One of the things that a friend of mine shared is her daughter was going through this in her early marriage. And so she went to go see her priest. My friend went to go see the priest and say, what can I do here to help my daughter? And one of the things that the priest recommended was to give her daughter a code word. So it was something that if she felt threatened or something was happening, she could either text or call her mom and have it be something just very general. Mm-hmm. And so my friend said there were several times where she would get a call from her daughter sharing the code word, and she would be jumping in the car, calling the cops, doing whatever she could. And thankfully, eventually, the daughter was, able to, unfortunately, end the marriage, but fortunately no longer be in that circumstance. And it was through the assistance of, her family structure and her being courageous enough to use that word to get help.
on that note, I want to share with our listeners that these are some of the things you need to pay attention to. So the question is, does your partner embarrass or make fun of you in front of your friends or family? Something as simple as that. That sometimes we take for granted and just laugh. Does your partner put down your accomplishments? Do they make you feel like you are unable to make decisions? Does your partner use intimidation or threats to gain compliance? Does your partner tell you that you are nothing without them? Treat you roughly, grab, push, pinch, shove, or hit you? Does your partner call you several times at night or show up to make sure you're where you say you're going to be? Does your partner use drugs or alcohol as an excuse for saying hurtful things or abusing you? Does your partner blame you for how they feel or act? Do they pressure you sexually for things you aren't ready for? Do they make you feel like there's no way out of the relationship? Does your partner prevent you from doing things you want, like spending time with friends or family? Do they try to keep you from leaving after a fight or leave you somewhere after a fight to teach you a lesson? Those are some of the things. Some of the things I read here happen. And like you say, it's a red flag, but we brush over it. Especially if you think, I love this person. And then the whole mind game of making you feel belittled, or you can't make a decision, or you're nothing without me. You'll never survive without me. These are some of the things that people go through, and we want to encourage you that if you have any of these things happening, as Laura shared, maybe you need to have a relationship where you have a code word and you can begin to build relationships that help you to get out of those situations. And while I love marriage and I will always defend marriage, this is not marriage.
Right.
If you're
That's
going
right.
through these things.
Yeah.
That's right.
And there should be no abuse. If there's abuse, you need to get out. It's that simple.
I think that's important because there is a line that we hear that marriage is for life, especially in our context of faith. Marriage is for life, and nothing is worth a divorce, and God hates divorce. And yes, God does hate divorce, but
God-
he hates a lot of things.
Yeah.
So come on now. And to your point, marriage is very defined by God, and it does not include that. And so if things are happening that are outside of what his design is for marriage, then I don't really know that you're leaving a marriage. I think that's
Right.
accurate.
And I think we should also point out that if you're dating and these things are happening,
Yes.
the marriage is not
Marriage
going
is
to
not,
happen.
is not the solution.
You know?
Yes.
Marriage will not make it better.
Nope,
Exactly.
nope. If anything, it
Exactly.
will make it worse.
Exactly.
Yeah. And people have this thing, I mean, yeah, you're married for life and all of that stuff, but God does give you the option to divorce because, like I said, and then a lot of people get married and God really wasn't in it to begin with, you know? So they use the thing, what God has joined together, let no man put asunder. Did God really join it together? I mean, and the Bible also tells us about being not unequally yoked. Two cannot walk together except to be agreed. So like you said, if there are red flags from the beginning, if you're not getting along while you're dating, what make you believe marriage is going to make you get along? It's
That's
not.
the thing.
Exactly.
If you're in the relationship thinking, oh, I'm going to change my partner,
No.
it's not going to happen. All right? Constantly making excuses to other people for your partner's behavior. Sometimes you feel scared of how your partner may behave. Try not to do anything that would cause conflict or make your partner angry. Do you always do what your partner wants you to do instead of what you want to do? Do you stay with your partner because you're afraid of what your partner would do if you broke up? If you're having any of those emotions, it's not healthy. It's not healthy. Always remember that no one deserves to be abused. The abuse is not your fault. You are not alone. Don't worry about threats to things that they threaten to take from you. There's information to help you and give you options in those situations. Sometimes it's a visa. Sometimes it's you're not gonna get the benefits of this country if you don't worry if you do not speak the local language. There are many who can help you who speak many languages. And I think we cannot sit here as experts and tell you the solution, but we can encourage you to be aware of what it looks like and encourage you to build your support group. Do not isolate yourself. Find your support group, whether it's friends, family, or church, and make sure someone knows so you can get help. What do you think, ladies? Is that good enough?
Well, I would add to that, if you find yourself in this situation and you are already isolated, think, how could you bring in just one person? What could that look like to really help you move forward? And, in certain areas, depending on where you live, there are also, if you go into public restrooms, some of them have posters up in the stalls that say, if you are a victim of domestic violence, domestic abuse, here's a number where you can call for help. So if you have the benefit of walking into one of those bathrooms, you have that too. Because I know that with some of you, we may be speaking to you and you are already in that situation. So just think through how you can possibly find help.
And on that note, we're going to bring this session to an end. I want you to know that we know that we are Global Women Enrichment. And so there may be viewers in other countries listening to us who you're going through these things. Find somebody in your circle to help you. Okay, we want to encourage you to do what you need to do to be safe, because all women, all men, all people should feel safe in relationships that they're in. So with that, we're going to bid you adieu, good night, and we hope to talk to you again soon. Laura?
And remember, you can always reach us at gwenrichment.com, and remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until we see you again soon, take care.